part of our quality online teaching series, Managing the Online Teaching Workload. My name is Tracy Miller, and I'm the Online Teaching Coordinator here at Northern Illinois University's Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center. And you can see my contact information down at the bottom. I love talking anything online with folks, so if you want to shoot me an email and have a follow-up discussion, I would certainly welcome it. But let's get some introductions started. In the text chat area, please, just simply state your name, your department, maybe the university that you're with, and then any online teaching experience that you have, maybe in relation to how many years or how many courses you've taught. Even I'd like to know a little bit more if you've been an online student yourself. So go ahead and add your answers into the text chat area. And if you did come in a little bit later, the text chat area can be opened up by going to the bottom of the screen, bottom right-hand side of the screen, opening up those arrows, and then clicking on the chat bubble. Raymond is from the Department of Sociology. 0 online courses taught or taken. So you're in the right spot. Hopefully you'll learn some things, and you might be curious about this particular workshop because you're maybe thinking about teaching online, and you kind of want to know what level of work it might be for you. So hopefully we get some of those questions answered for you. Janet is with FacDev here at NIU, been teaching for over 25 years and taught 1 online course. Yes, and Janet and I worked together, and we each taught a section of that course, so we're very familiar with each other's teaching styles. Anne is an adjunct instructor in the School of Allied Health and Communicative Disorders, teaching a first online course this semester. I've taken several online courses as a doctoral student in health sciences. Yes, again, I think that being that online student can definitely give you some perspective. And welcome to the world of online learning. Kenny is in ETRA, going on 2 years in online teaching experience with more than 10 years in taking online courses. Isn't it amazing that we can say that nowadays, that somebody has more than 10 years of taking online courses? I myself started in 2007, so we're right at about the same point. Yes, it was fun, Janet, doing the course. Philip, foreign languages at Wabansie Community College, no online teaching experience, but have been learning things myself. Yes, you have. I've seen you in quite a few of my sessions, so welcome back. Jung is from the College of Business OMIS department and has 0 online class experience, but might teach in the fall of 2019. Good place to start. I'm hoping we're going to have lots of conversations to get you ready for 2019. Bill in music, used online as part of courses for a number of years, but never taught an online course. And you know, that's always a healthy place to be. We're using more and more technology in our courses, and I think much of this will be valuable to you. Nadia is from the Department of Anthropology. Have not taught any online, but tried some informal online tutoring. I have taken 1 online course. A lot of good pieces, gives you some good structural knowledge. But really, what does it take what's that workload that it's going to take to have a fully online course? Dan is from FacDev and has been teaching several online courses since 2007. So teaching online courses as long as we've been taking them, including 2 sessions of ethics, 2 sections of ethics this semester. Great. Ashley is a teaching assistant for the School of Health Studies in the nutrition department. I have taught human nutrition in an online format over the summer and currently teaching in person. Okay, so you're going to have a perspective of kind of the difference between the two in a really short amount of time. Actually, my first online course was in so you beat me. You've been an online student longer than me. Congratulations. Well, again, welcome everybody. I think we've got a real mix. That's pretty typical nowadays. People with a lot of experience, either as a student or in teaching, and then those folks that are dabbling with using more technology in their teaching, all the ways to some experience teaching a fully online course. So I'm hoping that everybody will share their experiences and their questions as much as I will be answering questions. I hope that everyone's experience will help them answer the questions and be more thoughtful about the answers, things that maybe I haven't even thought of yet. So as an introduction to the workshop, we have two different series that we have right now, the online teaching series and the online course design series. And that's because there's just a lot out there. There's a lot of detail that needs to be pulled together. So we've separated them into separate, what this diagram is showing, the online quality pie. This is going to tap into a couple different areas. We're definitely going to talk about course designs, decisions that you can make in your design that will make your workload easier. Definitely some kind of just-in-time strategies to help you with delivering or the actual teaching part of an online course. And then that faculty readiness piece that I kind of alluded to in your introductions. If you're considering doing an online course in the future, I feel like you're probably taking these workshops in order to become more ready. So faculty readiness is definitely part of this workshop. I am going to take just a quick breath, look at the attendance, make sure I'm caught up with everyone. And it looks like I am. So my workshop objectives, what I hope you will be able to discover and then be able to do by attending this workshop is, how do you keep up with a course that's considered always on? Because time is different when you're in an online course. It's more asynchronous, so people are at different places and different times. They're accessing the course at different times, but it really makes it feel like it's sort of this 24/7 environment. And that is how we're going to try to manage our time and our workload, knowing that that's what happens. Definitely want to know some practical strategies on how to save time and increase your efficiency so that your focus is helping the students and not getting stressed out about the particular workload. So this is how I'm going to break up the session today. We're going to talk about course design and course delivery, which I mentioned when we had the online quality pie. But I'm also going to kind of push things off into the separate section called grading. There's decisions you're going to make in the design and the delivery of your course when it comes to grading, but I think that's where the bulk of the workload comes in an online course, is this grading area. In my perspective, I think that folks wonder, once they have their content, their presentations, maybe their lectures created, that, you know, where am I spending my time now if I'm not spending 90 minutes, 2 hours in class lecturing? Well, you're probably going to be spending that time grading your students' work. So definitely want some efficiency practices and strategies for that. So we'll start off with course design. And so one of the best strategies that I think of when you're using course design and thinking about course design is to use existing learning resources. They are out there for you. They're called open educational resources. And those are resources that someone else has already created, and you can actually add them into your your course, and that'll save you a ton of time. And there's some really good resources out there. So I just have a few recommendations here, some of my favorites. OER Commons is a .org site, and again, many higher education professionals have added content to this area. Any of these resources are going to let you know that you can share these resources because they're considered open, so they're available to everyone. So take advantage of that. The quality of them is really getting higher and higher. You can actually see how other educational professionals have rated them. They're coming from real institutions. They're not just coming from some kind of commercial entity or somebody that just thinks this is a great presentation. Their quality is really starting to climb for those. Merlot, the one in the center, is probably the largest one. Again, a lot of different kinds of resources. There's videos, there's lesson plans, there's quiz banks, there's just written resources, all kinds of resources that you can start with that, again, will save you a lot of time and really also provide your students with different voices on your subject matter, which is really valuable to your students too. The final one at the bottom here, the Open Textbook Library. The NIU University Libraries just came up with a relationship with this Open Textbook Library. And I'm going to add a link for you. And basically, you can search for an open textbook, one available for you to use with your students, open to you and open to your students so that they do not have to pay for them. And so that is a very valuable resource for students that have those financial barriers. And I don't think there's anybody out there that likes to spend $80 to $200 on a textbook. So check out that resource. Our library has been working a lot with those folks. So we have access to it. Okay, so that was my first suggestion. Try to find that open content so that you are not spending a lot of time creating your own content. Next, organize your files on your computer. I know whenever we organize our files on our computer, it seems like more work up front. When we find a great resource or we create something, we're kind of dumping it. I'm guilty of it, dumping it on our desktop. But if you start by organizing your files on your computer, it will be much easier to then put those files into your Blackboard course. So I've set up this file structure that you can use if it makes sense to you. So I create a file on my desktop or maybe in my documents called course. And then I start to build out the structure of what the course is going to look like by adding these weekly folders. And then within the weekly folders, I'm going to add everything that I would eventually add to the course. So I'm starting to build out that structure a little bit. And I've got kind of this weekly structure. It's fine. You can call it modules. You can call it units. You can even make it more topic specific. But you're making those decisions and adding them to your computer. I've also added this project folder at the end, and that's because I know it's going to cross over multiple weeks. So it's just a little different, but everything that goes into the project is going to go into this one folder. You can definitely build out some of these things in Blackboard, and I'm going to give you some strategies on how to do that. But one of the real values, I think, of organizing your files on your computer is that if Blackboard or your LMS is down, your learning management system is down, then you can email your students some of those readings. Maybe they're saying the internet is down and I can't get to that reading and I really need it right now. You're able to still give them that information because it's sort of housed outside of Blackboard. It may be something where you know that you're going to do several sections of a course, so you want to organize it one way on your computer, and then you're going to import it differently into Blackboard. So it really just will help you to sort of organize your files on the computer first. Here is some other ways you can organize your content, and maybe more so if it's a link. If it's a link to a website, if it's a link to an online journal, an online textbook. I know that what I used to do as an online student 10 years ago was I would create a Word document and I would just add all of my links that I thought were important, maybe to a paper I was writing or something like that. But now they have these great tools for that. So here are just a few that you can check out, and chime in if you've used any of these. They're pretty popular. Evernote at the top, Delicious down at the bottom. These are considered bookmarking tools, and so you can get any of these sort of services on all of your devices. So if you have Evernote on your PC and your phone and your iPad and your computer at home, you can access these links from all of those places. And so it really goes above and beyond what I used to do by having a Word document with a bunch of links. You can also filter things by a subject matter or even the week that you're going to add it to. And so then you're easily able to sort any of these resources and again, manage them from multiple places. I sort of skipped over Diigo, and that's just because that's my personal preference. That's the social bookmarking tool that I like to use. I actually use it as an assignment with my students. Any sort of online resources and links that they find, I have them add it to a Diigo account, and we've created a course page so that I can see all of the resources that the students have added into this Diigo environment. I can see how they filtered them. But one of the great things I love about Diigo is you can actually annotate on the resources, and everyone can see how you annotate, what kind of notes you're taking, or a summary that you've created. Can all be added in this Diigo, again, that can be accessed from just anywhere. So it's really easy for the students to be able to see each other's resources. Maybe it's a group project where they're sharing resources, but Diigo is great for, again, that social bookmarking activity. So that means that there's more than one person. That social aspect is that they're collecting these resources more socially. So I added that resource in there for you too, if you'd like to check that out. Okay, so we talked about organizing our files on our computer, and then we're eventually going to need to put it into our Blackboard course when we're designing the course. And so the recommendation, the strategy is to finalize one module first. And so we've come up with this sort of structure, this tree, and we're going to decide everything that's going to go into one module before we build any other modules. I would recommend maybe not building the first module 1 first, because that tends to be very introductory and maybe does not have that normal consistency that happens after week 1. So go ahead and build out week 2 first. And you know, however it's going to look, you're going to think about what you're going to name it. Is there going to be a weekly introduction first? Are you going to list out the readings and resources next? Or is the readings and resources all going to be compiled somewhere else in the course? Whatever decisions you're starting to make, start to build it out in that first module, and then you can simply copy that structure into each of those subsequent modules, and that way they're all consistent and you're just sort of filling in the blank at that point. So get that first one the way you like it, And this next slide here is sort of a mix of the two. So I have my structure over here that's on my computer, so I know everything that I want to put into the course and into week 1. And then I've created this template of sorts, this Finalize template that we talked about in the last slide. So there's going to be a welcome, some sort of overview. I'm going to add in all of the weekly objectives, a class session if you're going to have a live session, maybe even a on-ground session. Some online courses have a couple on-ground sessions. The readings and resources, any activities that the students will be doing during that week, anything that needs to be turned in. And then I always like to add some tips for success, what's going to really help them in this week. In this example that you see here, I have Welcome to Module X. You can build this as your template that you're going to go forward course after course with. This is a really good design strategy if you are a faculty member that's designing a course, but you're not necessarily the one that's going to be teaching it. So you're letting whoever's doing the delivery part know what the design is for the course week after week. And then I just highlight sort of that where I'm going to what it all means, and then I leave some space for actually adding that piece in, adding that content in. The consistent template is really going to help the students not get bogged down on the navigation of the course and really be able to focus on the content itself. But having that consistent template is also going to help you because you're going to have that structure week after week and it's going to be predictable. My next tip strategy is to provide specific instructions to your students. This may be something that you would naturally do in class, and you would be able to respond to your students if you were face-to-face if they had any particular question and you needed to dig into the details. So it's important to upfront really provide specific instructions so you're not spending a lot of time answering the students' questions on how things need to be done. So I said I actually use Diigo in my course. So this is actually an example of the instructions that I use in the course. And so there's lots of detail of, 5 steps of what they need to do in order to complete this specific assignment. But I also created Janet and I actually created more detailed instructions that students could open up that really had step-by-step, click-by-click instructions on what students needed to do so that they could open that up if they needed more detail for those instructions. Especially Diigo was one of the first, it was the first learning tool exploration. So just being a different kind of assignment, we almost needed to go really overboard on how specific our instructions were. At the bottom here, Janet said, never assume students understand what you want them to. Explicit instructions helps with this. Absolutely. Down at the bottom, there is an icon that I added to lynda.com. There's a short URL, an NIU. So if you're not from NIU, unfortunately, you won't have this advantage, but maybe your institution has its own lynda.com. So many great resources on lynda.com that I would put in more of that job aid category. If you want your students to use Excel and you don't want to have to teach them how to use Excel, they can go over to lynda.com and learn how to use it. Photoshop, just more of those tools that you might be using in your course. This will save you time because you're giving them instructions that lynda.com has created. You don't have to come up with instructions on something that's a tool you're using but not really specific to your discipline. So definitely check out lynda.com for that. You can add those links in your course. You're done with your instructions. Another tip is to use the date management area in Blackboard to update any of your availability dates or your due dates in a course. So specifically, if you have already created the course and you are just copying it into a new section, for instance, Dan's teaching a couple sections of his course this fall. If he was teaching again in the spring, he could copy over all of his course content. That would include his due dates, but his due dates wouldn't make any sense now because now it's gone from fall to spring. So look for your date management tool. It's under Tools in the Control panel. This will give you sort of an inventory of all of those availability dates, those due dates, and you can make some simple edits by just using the pencil icon, updating them to the due dates that now make sense. There's also an option of just boosting everything by like 180 days, but usually there's some nuances that need to be in there where you're going to need to make those changes. Dan says a big time saver, yes. In one case, I was introducing the date management area to a group of people, and it came with applause. They were so excited about this tool. Also gives you a really good way to look at those dates that are already in there. Sometimes if we're making changes here and there to our course, we're going to miss one. So this is going to give you a screen that has all of those availability and due dates in there. I'm going to take a breath, drink of water. I want to hear what recommendations you might have. So go ahead and feel free to add those to the text chat area, or if you'd like, raise your hand and we can get the microphone turned on. Dan says, I recorded audio weekly greeting, including a transcript. And you know what? I love that idea. That's really important to add to your design. But it's also a great time saver because we know we're going to need those transcripts in there. So if you're going to do those weekly introductions, get that transcript done right away, and it will save you a ton of time later if you have a whole bunch to do. Keep adding answers and suggestions if you have them, or even a question. I'll be happy to answer them for you. I'm going to switch gears to talk about delivery a little bit. That teaching part, what's happening after the course has begun. So first of all, you want to really start strong, have your students start strong. So the recommendation is to add a getting started area for your students. Think about those early steps that they're going to need to do and add them into the course. But then, you know, help them along the way. As things are a little bit more difficult getting started, but if you put in a little bit of effort at the beginning, things will go much smoother and save you time in the long run. I do want to read out Raymond's response. Is it feasible to use Collab to create a video lecture to go with the audio? I had a professor in an undergrad who used to update Collab with a recorded lecture with slides. Is it better suited for live sessions? It is better suited for live sessions, but yes, you can use it to do a recorded session. There are other tools that you can use. So if you are considering that, definitely give us a call and we can figure out what you want to do. And Dan's raising his hand because Dan is actually our fact dev expert on that, so he probably has some contributions to make to that. So Dan, if you'd like to use your microphone, go ahead.
Thanks, Tracy. I just like to say that I actually use both as an opportunity to reach out to students. Sometimes I have a live session. In fact, I usually start the semester with a live session and I'll record it. So it actually has the benefit of being synchronous and asynchronous at the same time. But for the rest of the semester, I'll usually just record using another tool, Adobe Presenter, where I record and also has the opportunity to include a transcript for each slide, which makes it really easier for the students to be able to ask questions. And I ask them to, although this is, I don't know, self-paced, I said it's better if you view it the first day of the week, Monday or Tuesday maybe. And then if you have questions, I'll have a follow-up also in a Blackboard Collaborate session, virtual office hours, where people can ask me questions maybe on Wednesday if they have any questions about the presentation. So usually that goes quite well.
Thanks, Dan. It's always great having colleagues in here that can contribute to the conversation. Okay, so another delivery recommendation is to have clear expectations for communication. I mentioned we're going to be doing a lot of grading. We're also going to be doing a lot of communicating. We want to make sure that our students don't feel isolated and that there is some interaction going on, and that often takes point of communication, but the clear expectations are the important part during the delivery. And that is, again, to help you with your efficiency and your workload so that you're not always catching up on communications or you feel like there has to be this immediate turnaround time. If you let your students know what the expectations are, it's really going to help that. So here's some examples of how that may look in a course. Post questions to the discussion, the Q&A discussion forum if they aren't private, and encourage your students to do that. And then your students may even respond to each other if they know the answer, which is of course going to save you time that way. If students send you an email early on, but you really feel like this is a good Q&A discussion, again, even though it's going to take a little bit more time, encourage them to put that into the discussion forum so they kind of learn that behavior and everyone is benefiting from that answer. So you're not answering multiple emails about that question. You might tell students that you're going to respond to all emails within 24 hours and to please be patient. 24 hours seems like a really quick turnaround. Your turnaround time may be a little different, but really 24 hours is much longer than immediate turnaround, right? So if you're at least painting those expectations as, you know, within 24 hours, 48 hours, the students won't expect that immediate response. And you can kind of set your calendar to say, okay, every morning I'm going to check emails, I'm going to respond to them, but you're not distracting yourself all day long by trying to respond to these emails. I will read and respond to email during business hours. So that's another strategy. You're not going to be answering the 3 a.m. Email no matter what. It's going to be during, you know, more of a traditional business hour, Monday through Friday. Maybe you're going to respond more over the weekend, depending on what other things you have going on. Again, you're just being really clear about when you will respond and how frequently you will respond to your students. Encourage them to include a course number in the subject line of your email with a polite greeting and then to sign their name. Sometimes this can seem really obvious to us, but if you are teaching several sections, you may have, you know, many students. It really helps to just, again, encourage them to use this method that helps you kind of comb through your emails in a more efficient, managed way. To start off when you're delivering your course, use a syllabus quiz. This is a great way to use the technology that's in your course to help your students not be so confused and asking questions about maybe what's going on with the course. It also is a good way for them to practice using a quiz tool. So if you are using quizzes in your course, having them do a syllabus quiz is a way to give them some practice in that with a lower stake. So if you're interested in creating a syllabus quiz, just ask us if you don't know how to use the test tool yet, but it's really easy to use. I've also done things where students might have to submit an assignment by answering questions that are related to the course. Maybe they're sending you a copy of the course schedule so that you know that they have actually seen it. And that gives them practice in using the assignment tool. So anything that you can do to help them gain some practice early in the course is going to save you time later in the course. Another thing is when the course is happening, when it's being delivered, have the folders arranged in reverse order. And that's so whatever the most current module that's being delivered is up at the top, and your students aren't scrolling down to the bottom to find it, but you're not scrolling down to the bottom to find the information either. So a good recommendation is to reverse order your folders. Another thing I've heard about is if you are chunking up your folders into maybe months. Just flip those months so that, again, the newest one is at the top. You'd be surprised at how multiple scrollings can just drive people nuts. Dan, do you have some input on that?
Yes, Tracy, absolutely right about reverse ordering that, but you might also want to add that you have release dates. And so this week was whatever session this happens to be, session 13 or 14, and it's not available until Monday morning, today actually, so that it doesn't appear at the beginning of the semester. It only appears at the top when it's relevant, when it's date specific, so that yeah, the students will see whatever is most current, because it's been released based on anticipation date of release.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely works much better with those release dates so that you don't see everything on week 1 and then you are scrolling down. So excellent suggestion. Thank you. My next suggestion is to use due dates and the calendar. We've already talked about how fantastic the date management tool is, but anytime you use due dates, they will show up on your calendar. I actually, with my students, I call it the stay on track calendar, so that students can kind of see and anticipate when due dates are coming up and kind of manage their time wisely. And I'm going to talk about how you can use it. What I'm suggesting is that you start to establish a routine, and that's going to really help your efficiency, and you're able to manage your workload that way. So, I like to kind of pull out the calendar, take a look at it, and think, okay, what am I going to need to accomplish for my students this week? So Dan just mentioned opening up a module on a Monday. So maybe you're going to open up your week with an announcement. And so you're going to know, okay, Monday is sort of announcement day. And then over Tuesday and Wednesday, that's going to be my grading day. So in this case, I have assignments that are due on that Sunday. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of time, but then I'm going to make sure that my grading is done by Wednesday morning. And then finally on Friday, I'm going to send out a reminder announcement saying, don't forget, Sunday's your next due date. And so this is going to be sort of my routine that I've established. And it's not important that you follow my routine. I'm just suggesting that you come up with your own routine. And so what happens is the following week is going to sort of have that same cycle again. And there's just, everything's kind of bits and pieces and chunked up. And so every week we're assuming that this process is going to be happening for us. And it's not going to feel so overwhelming because, again, we've established that routine. Another tip is to create and subscribe to a question and answer forum, help forum, a question for the prof forum. I've heard a lot of different names for these. And we talked about really encouraging our students to use the forum. This subscription button that it says unsubscribe here because it's already been clicked on will give you an email when a new question comes in. And I know question and answer forums can be used to reduce the amount of emails we get in, but this is just our little trigger that something's new has come into the forum, and that if we're answering questions in the morning, we know that tomorrow morning we definitely have a question in there to answer, and we don't have to be jumping in and out of the course as often. The retention center is another great delivery strategy. If you haven't seen the retention center, it's under evaluation in the left-hand navigation. It creates a table. It's already creating a table for you. If you're not familiar with it, you may not even know about it, for at-risk students. So what are some risk factors that your students may be exhibiting? Are they missing deadlines? Is their grade a certain percentage below the course average? Is their activity level, their overall activity level in the course below that average? Or this last one, I think, is a really good example. Are they just not accessing the course frequently enough? That's going to be a real indicator that there's something off with the students. And so you don't have to spend a lot of time kind of gathering this data because the retention center has done it for you. And it also makes it really easy for you to reach out to your students if you want to let them know that they are exhibiting these at-risk behaviors. And so it's really as easy as clicking on the notify button at the top. Leonardo here has several at-risk factors. So if you want to notify Leonardo, you just click on that student's name and it would send them an email. It actually has a sort of generic default message in there. I usually like to personalize it a little bit more. But another great feature is it has this notification history down at the bottom. So when you use the retention center for this, instead of just a normal email, it's going to have that history for you. And so you'll be able to go back and look at another week. Oh, I haven't heard from Leonardo, and I sent him an email last week. Perhaps I should escalate it or do something, a little bit differently to try to get Leonardo tapped back into the course a little bit. So the retention center is a great time saver for that. We're wrapping up the recommendations for delivery, and we're quickly running out of time. So I will click on the next slide, but feel free to add any recommendations you might have into the text chat area, and I'll be sure to read them over. But let's talk about grading, because I said a lot of our workload is grading in an online course. So my first recommendation is to pace your grading. Here's the calendar up on the screen again. Here's those due dates. Perhaps alternate between hard and easy grading. So if there's a time where you know that there's a draft of a major paper or project, give yourself and your students a little bit more room to get the assignment done, for you to give them really valuable feedback, and then allow them to be able to act on those refinements in their next assignment. So pace your grading. Again, pull out that calendar. Take a look if there's ways that you can alternate your easy and hard grading. Use the Blackboard interactive rubrics. It's one of those things that in the design, it can take a little bit more time to create interactive rubrics, but in the delivery, it makes grading so much easier. You're giving your students some information just by clicking on a button that gives them some quick feedback, but also reinforces your expectations. This is an example of a discussion rubric. Discussions are very popular in online courses. If you're using them week after week or consistently, allowing the students to know quickly how they can kind of boost up their grade, rubrics are great for that. But it also gives you an opportunity to personalize and specify more feedback detail for those students that need more of that detail in an area that they can easily find it. And it's already very specific because it addresses a specific area, in this case, substantive discussion board posts. So commit to yourself that you are going to create these interactive rubrics. You can pop open the interactive rubric when you're grading an assignment. And again, you're just clicking boxes, super simple to answer. Also has your grading, it becomes more consistent because you're always grading them to these standards that are right in front of you. So rubrics is a great tool to make you a more efficient grader. Make sure you enable grading for discussion forums. Discussion forums can be non-graded. Sometimes they're more social or off-topic or introductory, the Q&A discussions. But if you are using them to grade for content knowledge or content synthesis, something like that, make sure you click that button that says Enable Grading. It's going to stack all of the students' posts into one area so that you're not going through an entire forum, counting threads, making sure they responded twice. If you select that Enable Grading, it's going to save you a ton of time. Use your embedded annotation tools. In Blackboard, we have inline grading, and again, this will give you the opportunity to sort of mark up the work like you would in a Word document, and right within Blackboard, and make it really easy for the students to find where your feedback is important, and maybe even exactly how you would like them to improve their work. And whenever you do anything visual like this, I think it also helps the students that like that visual indicator a little bit more. In this case, Stephanie Richter, our assistant director, shared one of her assignments, and she said, this is really hard to read. Use better color contrast for your colors. And so, you know, that's pretty specific, and I think something that students can definitely take action on. But didn't take a large paragraph to explain. If you haven't started this already, again, commit to yourself to maybe doing this. Save your common feedback phrases. So if there's something that you know time and time again, this paper that you've graded many, many times, and you've come up with these great feedback phrases that just hone in on what the students need to do. Again, take that 30 seconds to copy and paste it into your feedback bank. Will save you a ton of time when you're actually giving the feedback to your students and you're in that grading mode, that grading part of your routine. So those are the recommendations I have for grading, and I'm happy to go through any of them if you'd like in a little bit more detail, but I would like to hear from you. We are into our last few minutes here, so I want to make sure that you have time to ask me questions. So I will pause and again take a drink of water just for a second so you can type in any questions you might have. I definitely would like to hear any suggestions. Okay. Again, if you are typing in questions, I'm sure they will pop up eventually. So my strongest bit of suggestion is I like to start planning early, Janet said. So I'm not going to say don't let this be you, because you should be planning early. Don't get yourself caught in the trap of I can always catch up while the course is being delivered. That happens more often than we wish, but that just adds to your workload and your stress. So definitely start planning early, start that design phase, and that will really help with the delivery piece. The wonderful thing about design of an online course is it can be used over and over again. Usually we tweak, we refine a little bit, but again, that's going to save us work in the end if we have a really good design up front. So in summary, in the design phase, use existing resources, organize your files, use your method of organization. I think everyone kind of has their own, so use your own. Finalize that first module before beginning the others. Use a consistent template. It's going to help your student with navigation, but it's also going to help you you remember where you put things and how you came up with your design. Provide detailed instructions. It's almost to the point where too detailed is can it even be a thing? You know, maybe you want to give more brief instructions up front, but have those detailed instructions somewhere in your back pocket that you can pull out if a student has questions. And then remember to use your date management when copying courses. So what do you want to do when you're managing your time while teaching? Help the students get started. That again is going to save you time because they're not going to have more difficult questions further down the road. Set those clear expectations for communications up front. You might want to use a syllabus question, syllabus quiz. The syllabus definitely can bring up some questions. It can answer questions, but we all know how often they may or may not be reading through the syllabus. Put your folders in reverse order. Also use your adaptive release, as Dan suggested, not your adaptive release, your release dates, adding the newest on top. Use your due dates and your calendar. A lot of great benefits for that. For yourself, establish a routine. Try to stick to it. Remember to create and subscribe to question and answer forum. And then check out that retention center if you haven't checked it out yet. A lot of good benefits to that. For grading, pace yourself. Use your rubrics. Use your interactive rubrics even better. Try to remember to save your common feedback phrases to use again. Enable grading in your graded discussion forums. Use your annotation tools in Blackboard. Be thrifty with your comments. I kind of glossed over that one really quickly, but you don't have to be too verbose in that. get to the point and move on with that. And then the last one, to try BB Grader. It's an app that you can do some of your grading with now. So that can save time if you're on a train or in some other area where you think maybe you can't get to your course and get your grading done. Try out the app. Here are some of the resources that that we have for you and that I pulled from to come up with this presentation this afternoon. A lot of good resources that you will find on our resource page from Faculty Development. And just to remind everyone again, my name is Tracy Miller and I'm the Online Teaching Coordinator. Here's some contact information for me. But also, if you'd like to connect with us, follow us on Twitter or Facebook, and you'll receive more information that way. Thank you, everyone, so much